And we are live.
Welcome to the school board business meeting of ISD 834 on January 21st, 2021, which is actually a momentous day. It's the 21st day of the 21st year in the 21st century. And it is also a palindrome, 1/21/21, exactly the same forwards and backwards. So just thought I would point that out. Due to the current federal and state emergency declarations, the Minnesota directive to residents to stay at home and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting of ISD 834 School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D.021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Due to the health pandemic, the school board determined that it is not feasible for at least one board member, the superintendent, or the school district's legal counsel to be physically present at the regular meeting location, and that it is not feasible for the public to attend this meeting at the regular meeting location due to the health pandemic. Persons may monitor this meeting from a remote location by using our YouTube channel. School board members are reminded to mute their microphone or phone when they are not speaking. Joan, can you please take the roll call?
Director Hocker?
Here.
Director Onken?
Here.
Director Porbeni? Director Porbeni?
I think she's here, but she can't get her mic working.
Okay. Director Riley?
Here.
Director Sherman?
Here.
Director Weisberg?
Here.
Chair Petrie?
Here. Thank you,
Do you have
Joan.
a quorum?
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Would someone like to move?
Problems with the audio.
Would someone like to approve? Would someone like to move the approval of the agenda? Director Onken. Second. Director Hockert. Okay, Joan, can you take the roll on this, please?
Director Hocker?
Yes.
Director Onken?
Yes.
Director Porbeni? I'll come back. Director Riley?
Yes.
Director Sherman?
Yes.
Director Weisberg?
Yes.
Director Porbeni?
Annie, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Annie? I'm not quite sure.
I can't hear you. I
No,
hope you guys can hear me.
we're voting on the agenda, approval of the agenda.
Or whatever it is, it's thumbs up for me because I can't hear you. So
And Chair's
I'm gonna
Chair
try
Petrie.
change this.
Here. Or I'm sorry, yes.
You have a 7-0 vote.
Great.
You have a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. All right, next thing on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Mansfeld.
Thank you, Chair Petrie and fellow board directors. We have had a lot going on in our district, but first off, last week I was able to meet with Congresswoman Betty McCollum and was able to stress the importance of vaccines. She said she had full support of that and would take it to other people, including our governor, and try to move that forward as fast as possible. And then we did receive some great news this week that vaccines were arriving slowly, but they are arriving for our district staff. I will provide more information on that during an upcoming report. This week, this week I was able to go out and visit some sites. The first week of January, I was able to see 2 preschool programs at Stonebridge and Lily Lake. This week, I was able to drop by Afton Lakeland, Rutherford, Brookview and Anderson, as well as Lake Elmo. And the preschool students, they were engaged, a lot of smiling eyes because they did have, for the most part, have masks on, very active, and the teachers were doing a phenomenal job. I did have one little girl tell me that she had just turned 4 years old and she was a very old kid. It was fun to get out to see them. Also was able to visit the site-based programs at Stillwater Middle School and the high school, as well as Lisa Peterson's Stillwater Middle School class. Martin Luther King Jr. Day was this week, and they had a lesson on him and what it means to be a change agent. New website with our district. We launched a new website and we are excited to have it available for families and staff. If you are looking for something, please start with the search bar. 5 years ago, if something was there, it might not be there now. If you cannot find something, please contact our communications department and they will assist you. Next week is Paraprofessional Week. The week of January 25th through 31st is Paraprofessional Recognition Week. Paraprofessionals are individuals who work in a variety of positions in a school district. They have been on the front lines each and every day since the start of this pandemic, working with our students in childcare and other programs. Cannot say thank you enough for everything that our paraprofessionals do for our children and our schools. And finally, report cards will be coming out February 5th for the first semester, and teachers and students are wrapping things up now. With that, that's my report.
Okay, thank you very much. So next we go to student reports. So Mara, looks like it's you tonight.
Yeah, Bryn's having technical difficulties. I don't know if she's still in the waiting room, but I'm just going to get started.
Okay.
So we have a pretty long report for you tonight, but I'll start with the academics. So tomorrow is the last day of first semester, so students' classes will be switching next week. Yesterday, students received their schedules for the upcoming semester, which you can find on Skyward. Because people are beginning new classes, students should return their old textbooks and materials to the school and get the new ones that they need for their new classes, which you can find the schedule to pick those up in your email. Your books are still for sale, and on January 28th, the price will increase, so you want to buy one fast. And then I will move on to activities. So the Student Leadership Council has had numerous meetings this week to plan for their upcoming Racial Equity and Inclusion Conference that all Stillwater High School students will attend. Thanks to federal funding, all students under 18 years old eat free this entire school year, both at school and at home. No paperwork, no financial requirements. Make sure to take advantage of the free meals. It does not just benefit you and your family, it also helps the district receive additional funding. You can learn more about this at the new district website under nutrition services. And then be sure to watch the NHS Coffee House Community Talent Show tomorrow night at 7 p.m. The Zoom link is posted on the goponies.org website. NHS is also hosting a blood drive on February 19th, and registration for it will be open to the public on January 22nd. View the Stillwater Area High School newsletter for the week of January 11th for the link and code to sign up to donate blood. Our choirs have been hard at work practicing, and they will be videotaping concerts tomorrow. Valley Access will be sharing the performances with our community at a later date that has not yet been determined, but we will keep you updated. And that concludes the report for tonight.
Okay, so Bryn, you did not have anything. Mara took care of it all. Is that the case?
I'm sorry, guys, I just joined in. So yeah, I had technical difficulties, so I think Mara might have covered it, but I didn't because I just joined. So
If you want to talk about sports, Bryn, you can do that.
okay, sorry about that, guys. So thanks, Mara. Tonight I will be talking about the sports at Stillwater. And so our wrestling team will take their undefeated record to Forest Lake tonight. And our girls basketball team is also undefeated with wins over Park and Eastridge, and they travel to Woodbury tomorrow. Girls hockey is 2-0 with wins over Forest Lake and Roseville. They will play White Bear Lake on Tuesday. Boys hockey is undefeated as well with a win over Park. They play Roseville tonight and travel to Mounds View on Saturday. Nordic Ski won their meet last week and competed against Irondale today. Boys basketball won their opener over Park last Friday and lost to Eastridge on Tuesday. They will play Woodbury tomorrow. Boys swim and dive opened their season tonight against Moundsview. Competitive dance competes for the first time in Forest Lake tonight. Gymnastics and both boys and girls alpine skiing will open their seasons next week. Lastly, we want to thank all of the parents who are helping with live streaming of almost all of our team athletic events for our fans to watch. For those in the public who are interested in viewing pony sports, go to the Ponies website and click on the link next to the scheduled game or contest. And that'll do it for tonight.
Thanks, Bren. Okay, the next item is recognition, and I will let Superintendent Lansfeld tell us about that.
Hey, thank you, Chair Petrie and Board Directors. Tonight, we would like to recognize some basketball players at our Stillwater Area High School. We have Gianna Carr and Alexis Pratt, Anthony Ingram, and Samuel Jansky. I hope I said that last name correct. And Gianna, can you go ahead? And Gianna is a former student of mine from Lily Lake Elementary. So welcome. And we do have some coaches here too that I will go ahead and let them introduce their name after the students introduce themselves and the squad that you coach. So let's start with the girls. If you want to go ahead, Gianna, I'll let you start this off. If you can tell us your name, the year you are in high school, and any future plans.
Hi, I'm Gianna. I'm a senior. I'm going to be going to Tennessee State, which is an HBCU school, on a full ride scholarship to play Division I basketball.
Thank you, Gianna. Okay, Alexis. Ms. Alexis, if you want to introduce yourself. Okay, let's go to Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Ingram here, and I'm a senior here at Stillwater High School. And right now, my plans for the future are I'm still waiting. I might play some baseball in college. I'm not too sure. Maybe in the MIAC or possibly at NDSU. I don't know. I'm waiting to hear back from the coach, but I'm looking to apply. I'm still waiting for some applications to get back from some colleges just for academics. But that's where I stand, still undecided.
Thank you. And Samuel.
I'm Sam. I'm going to be going to St. Olaf next year. It's a D3 school in the MIAC, and I'm going to be playing basketball there. So,
Okay, thank you. And there's Alexis. Alexis?
Hi.
And what grade are you in, and any future plans?
I'm a senior, and I will be going to Nebraska, Omaha. Right now, I don't know what I want to study, but I will be thinking about it soon.
Thank you so much. They have put in a lot of time and effort, and just truly appreciate everything that they've been doing and accomplishing. And Brady Hannigan, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Brady Hannigan, and I'm the head boys basketball coach and a social studies teacher at the high school. And it's just been, man, it's good to be back and playing basketball and coaching and seeing our guys and have just a little bit sense of normalcy. They've been great with everything we've been doing, staying safe. And so I'm excited for them to continue to be able to have that opportunity.
Thank you. Willie Taylor.
He's just joining us again, Melinda. He got kicked out and should be here in just a moment.
Okay, we'll go to assistant head coach, Dean. If you'd like to introduce yourself. Dean Stambaugh.
Good evening, everyone. Coach Dean Stambaugh. This is my fourth season with Coach Taylor at Stillwater, and very excited, as Coach Hannigan mentioned, the crazy pandemic, and to bring some normalcy. Although running up and down the floor with masks on isn't really normal, but our players they're really truly rising to the challenge, and we're grateful for every day, and we're going to just keep working hard.
Thank you. And junior varsity coach, Andrea DeVos.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually married. I haven't changed my name yet, but I'm Coach Andrea Hubbard. I coach the junior varsity girls. 4th year coaching here in Minnesota, but this is my first year with Stillwater. And I've had an amazing time getting an opportunity to know Coach Taylor, Coach Stambaugh, and the girls, and I'm looking forward to this season.
Thank you. B squad coach Tim Pepper. I saw him.
Sorry.
There he
Yeah.
is.
I don't think I can undo my video, but that's probably for the best anyways. But I am B squad coach. This is my first year at Stillwater. I've coached basketball for about 25 years in the state of Minnesota, so I'm excited to be at Stillwater. It's been a lot of fun to get back into the gym. The girls have been great. They're working hard, and I'm excited to get going with the season here.
Thank you. 9th grade coach Alex Magler. I don't know if I see him. Okay, let's go to 9th grade coach Dave Belkey. I don't know if they were able to make it. And Coach Willie Taylor, are you able to jump on?
I'm here. I can't see my picture there, but you can hear me, correct? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've been at Stillwater for 6 years, and it's been the time of my life, a fun time. I've been treated great by Ricky Michael and Jackie Delahunt in the athletic office. It's been a fun time, and we're looking forward to have another great season this year. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And again, I appreciate the coaches, truly appreciate the students for coming tonight and sharing what they've been doing. And that is the end of our recognition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you and good night.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, and these are the items. Item A is minutes of January 7th, closed meeting. Item B, minutes of January 7th, business meeting. Item C, minutes of January 12th, special meeting. Item D, disbursement register. Item E, accept gifts and donations, November and December. Item F, treasurers and collateral report, June to December. And item G, human resources personnel report. I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda. Director Onken. Second. Director Sherman. Any discussion? Okay, Joan, could you take the roll, please?
Director Hocker,
Yes.
Director Onken,
Yes.
Director Porbeni,
Yes.
Director Riley,
Yes.
Director Sherman, Director Weisberg,
Yes.
and Chair Petrie.
Yes.
You have a 7-0 vote.
Thank you, Joan. Next, we move on to reports, and the first one is a report by Superintendent Lansfeld about the On the Dial Learning Update.
Melinda, you're not, your mic is
Oh,
not.
there we go. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Moving on the dial. The focus tonight is on our secondary plan. Looking at the data, again, we have the recommendations from MDE. These are cases per 10,000. They come out every Thursday at 11 o'clock. Washington County this week went up to 50.25. You can see the surrounding counties also went up. When it's 50 or higher, the recommendation is distance learning for all students. We'll talk more about this in a future slide. But during the past few weeks in Washington County, it has been 102.28. Then it went to 68.73, 44.45, 41.92, and now it went back up slightly to 50.25, just to give you an idea of where the county case rate has been. This is the Washington County dashboard, and you can see little over 20,000 cases confirmed. That's cumulative. 910 cases hospitalized, 194 cases in the ICU, and 230 deaths in Washington County. If you look at the chart, the green dots show the cases that they've been tracking per 10,000. The blue lines, they show the prison. When the prison had the outbreak, they pulled out the data to show the difference without the prison data in it. It went all the way up to 159 cases per 10,000 at the height. And now, as of the last time they posted was December 27th, it was at 41.84. Right, this is from the University of Minnesota, and these are the daily COVID rates by county. Washington County, if you see, has been very high in November, started to go down. And right now it is shifting slightly upward and downward, 42.3 by the county, and by the district it's at 40.8. The purple lines and the blue diamonds show the forecast. And again, by county, you can take a look. Most of the communities within our county are now in orange. A few weeks back, everything was in red, which orange is good news. And it's just kind of teetering right in there. We're hoping with more and more vaccines coming out that it will continue to go down. We'll be monitoring this closely. This is our Stillwater Area Public Schools dashboard that we track on a weekly basis. The information in this chart is from January 8th to January 14th. At this time, we've seen 5 students positive, 1 staff member, 14 students have needed to quarantine, and 16 staff members have needed to quarantine. And just note that this is when we are in distance learning, so we are still seeing some cases. Cumulative cases since the start of the year, 186 positive cases for students, 104 positive cases for staff, and the total number of cumulative exposed quarantine since the start of the school year, 2,645 students and 529 staff. This is out on our website. The link is there, but people can go and check that on a regular basis. Okay, this has been wonderful, wonderful news. We received a call from the state Monday morning, and the governor made an announcement in the afternoon. We do have a beginning pilot program. There are 9 sites across the state, 7 in greater Minnesota, 2 in the metro area. And we have been allocated for our district 17 vaccines. And it was a lot of work to go in and prioritize and get that information out immediately. The staff members have until 11:59 p.m. at night to put in the paperwork to set up an appointment. And the staff were just incredibly, incredibly thankful when they were told that they were able to have a vaccine. We do have to, with prioritization, look at the learning model that we are in, which is distance learning, and we are looking at different things to take into consideration for prioritization, such as age. Right now, we were looking at 60 and older. We're looking at the site-based programs in the childcare. They're in distance learning in the schools now. And then looking at staff that are working with students that are unable to wear masks at the time. And it might be for health reasons or other reasons. So this hopefully will continue. It's, as Deputy Commissioner Heather Mueller said, before you can run, you need to learn to walk. Before you learn to walk, you need to crawl. This is a crawl, but this is a lot of hope. And we're excited to have this continue in the near future. Okay, so right before winter break, we had the governor make some announcements with some changes to Minnesota's Safe Learning Plan. And we are now prioritizing bringing back our youngest learners to school. And this lessens the focus on county data as a singular determining point when considering learning models. We are still considering that county data, it's a significant data point with the secondary students. But the new guidelines provide new guidance on mitigation strategies for in-person learning, such as the recommendation of wearing both a face mask and a face shield for adults whenever possible. And it has recommended a rolling start or a slow start, gradual, to bring back students to ensure a safe return. So why the change? We are prioritizing academic and social needs of our students. We've learned more about COVID and how it spreads. And we know that masks, distancing, hygiene, such as the hand washing, makes a difference. And examples of other schools across the country and in other countries have been successfully implementing the in-person. This is part of an international trend, and New York was one of the first states to start this. Okay, so with Minnesota's Safe Learning Plan, they have recommended some new mitigation strategies. We now have, and this is exciting news as well, optional COVID-19 testing provided twice per month for staff that are working with students. This is recommended for asymptomatic staff. They can come in every other Monday. We had our first testing 2 Mondays ago, and this upcoming Monday will be our second test at all sites. It's a saliva test. It's free, and hopefully this will help prevent the spread and minimize the quarantine. Staff are strongly recommended, as mentioned earlier, to wear a face mask and a face shield whenever possible. And students are now meant to be 3 feet between each other. That's the physical distancing. It used to be 6 feet. It's down to 3 feet. But all adults are recommended to still stay 6 feet away from each other and students. When that is not possible because of activities or instructional modes, they have been provided a clear plexiglass barrier that can be placed between the staff and students or other adults. And it's recommended to have 6 feet between students in the cafeteria, but we have had clearance at the elementary level from our regional support team that students can be 3 feet away as a classroom in the cafeteria, but 6 feet away from other pods or classrooms. And so that will really help us out to have the ability to have students eating in the cafeteria as much as we can possibly provide that physical space. Okay, so why a slow rollout? We have a lot of families that want their students back in school, and we want the students back in school as well, but we want to do it safely. And the safety of students and staff, that is a top priority. We are prioritizing the youngest and most dependent learners to come back first, as outlined by the updated Minnesota School Safe Learning Plan. We are addressing operational staffing capacity. That's what closed a few schools down before winter break and ultimately closed down our district because of the inability to sufficiently staff. We want to avoid the hybrid learning model, and we realized doing the hybrid, it's meant to be a short bridge between the in-person and the distance learning, but it provides some significant barriers for a lot of our students. It was not consistent. The asynchronous learning days going back and forth, we found that students a lot of times were not engaged on those days like they are with the consistent model of in-person or distance learning. And it was difficult for the students. And then would like to know also the workload for teachers. We heard 70+ hours in a week sometimes to run that hybrid model. So we'd like to stay in person or distance as much as possible. Also consistency, we want to minimize going back and forth. We would really not like to see students come back and then immediately have to go back into distance learning. So we want to do this slowly and thoughtfully. We also want to align with grading periods at the high school. A number of the metro area districts in our area are on a trimester grading period that ends and a new one starts back up on March 15th. Our district is on a semester grading period, and that starts on April 5th. We'll talk more about that, but that is a critical point to take into consideration. We also want to monitor COVID-19 infection rates and quarantines to make sure that it's in check and we can sufficiently staff. Also, the vaccine rollout, we'll continue to monitor that, and we need those needles in arms to have staff and students feeling safe at school. So safety considerations, the exposure potential of staff and students. We do know that at the elementary level, it's much easier to contain classrooms or pods of students, but at the secondary level, they have multiple classes. They're in the hallway switching periods, and they have the ability to be much more mobile, especially with the driver's licenses. So a lot more potential for exposure at the secondary level, and we do know the spread rate is higher. And then there's the physical distancing. Students in a classroom need to be 3 feet apart. It is not required, but it is highly recommended. We know that it cannot happen or occur all the time, especially if you've taught kindergarten, preschool, but it will be the expectation to try to strive for. Also, the cafeteria capacity, it's much more manageable at the elementary school to provide that physical distancing, especially when you can have 3 feet between the classes at the elementary level. But the cafeteria space at the 2 middle schools and the high school, very difficult to keep that 6 feet of social distancing. So they're really thinking through that to make sure that they can provide that. Okay, so our recommendation for our secondary students, and I do want to note that a lot of thought and time went into this with our leadership team, our secondary administrators and staff input. And we have also heard from a lot of families as well. And I know the families, for the most part, really want their children back in school, but we do want to do this safely and thoughtfully. So February 16th, we are recommending that grades 6 through 12 students that have already been identified for in-person support for not making adequate progress will start back. This will be an equivalent of maybe close to 200 students per school, or about the size of, could go up to about the size of an elementary rollout with the 3 grade bands. And then we are also recommending that all on-the-dial teachers and teaching staff return to work in buildings. On that date, we want to support our students, make sure we have enough staff there. It's all hands on deck to make sure that we have adequate staffing and can really work hard to catch students up and get them to where they need to be. February 25th and 26th will be the 2 state mandated transition days for teachers to prepare for the shift in learning model. So no school for grades 6 through 8 on those transition days. On March 1st, which is 4 weeks before spring break, we are recommending grade 6 and the GATE, that's Gifted and Talented Education Program with 4th and 5th graders that's housed at Stillwater Middle School, return to school. And then 2 weeks after that, and 2 weeks before spring break, we are recommending on March 15th, grades 7 through 8 return to schools. March 25th and 26th will be the 2 state mandated transition days for the high school teachers. So no school for grades 9 through 12. And beginning on April 5th, which is the start of the grading day, grades 9 through 12 will return to school. Secondary students would return to school 4 days per week until the end of the school year and would continue to learn asynchronously from home on C days. Why are we doing this? Because it is required by the state that when teachers will be teaching both a distance learning component and an on-the-dial or in-person component, they must be provided an equivalent of 30 minutes of prep time per day, which is accounted for on the C days, and the majority of our secondary teaching staff do have both of those components. Whereas at the elementary staff, teachers have an on-the-dial class, or they are instructing a distance learning class. So that's the difference there. We really want to monitor the positive rates, the quarantine numbers, and do this judiciously to make sure that we have the operational capacity to do this right. We do not want to just get started and have to stop again. That transition is very hard. I do want to also stress that with this recommendation, the secondary principals really wanted to emphasize that this time right before spring break, if we went earlier, a couple of weeks earlier, that is really difficult for those students that need to catch up. And the grades on these transcripts are permanent grades. This would really throw a curveball for them, because when we started back at the beginning of the year in the hybrid, the students would come in the morning and then they would have office hours to meet with teachers. Right now in distance learning, they accommodated a better sleep schedule that's recommended for the students, and they have 2 80-minute blocks, lunch, and 2 more 80-minute blocks. So if we were to return, everything would shift, and the instructional delivery, it just would be very difficult. Okay. So the students that have already been identified for in-person support, they will be receiving an invitation. And again, they've already been identified and families will be notified. We want to keep these groups small and safe in accordance with our operational capacity and the safe rollout plan. Our goal is to provide support for the students who need it the most. This will be a full school day, including bus transportation and meals, and it will not be a regular synchronous in-person day when all of the students return. This will be a model based on a learning lab and using the Schoology platform. So lots of staff will be working with these students to make sure that we can have adequate growth and progress. Okay, so Stillwater Schools return to school timeline. This is just a review and a reminder of what we have been doing and what we will be recommending. Preschool was able to start back the first week of January, 2 days per week. Beginning February 1st, they will be in person 4 days a week. And again, it was wonderful to go out into the buildings and see this in action. They're doing very well. Grades K through 2 and site-based programs, including our ALC, will begin January 27th. So all students in person 4 days a week until March 1st. They will then be 5 days a week. So starting January 27th, they will still have C days until March 1st. Those C days are still learning days for our students. It's asynchronous learning, and the teachers will be planning and supporting how to support students that might be in quarantine while they're still in person. They will also be meeting individually with students, contacting families, and meeting in small groups to catch those students up. Grades 3 through 5 will begin back in person on February 10th. All students 4 days per week, with the C day still continuing and until March 1st. And then our proposed plan for grades 6 through 12. January 27th, our Alternative Learning Center, the Transitions 18 through 21 program and site-based programs will be coming back into the buildings. February 16th, students that have already been identified for in-person support will be contacted. All staff will be in the buildings. And March 1st, grade 6 and the 4-5 GATE program will roll up. March 15th, 2 weeks later, grades 7 through 8. And then beginning on April 5th, grades 9 through 12. Just a quick caveat that the grades 9 through 12, instead of rolling up a grade or 2 at a time at the high school, we want them all there because the teachers are teaching multiple grade levels at a time, and to try and teach some students that are at home, some students are in person, and all it's just would not be the best delivery model for students. We would like to bring them back all at the same time at the beginning of the grading period. Okay, and with that, we are open for questions. It's a lot of information.
It is. It's a lot of information. Thank you, Superintendent Lansfeld. I'm sure we are going to have some questions here. Who wants to start? Director Huckert.
Thank you. So my question has to do with the kids who've been identified to go back to school, and kind of thinking through how that's going to work in a classroom. Are these kids going to be assigned to a specific teacher to help them? And is this going to be doing basically online learning but in the high school or middle school with support from teachers? And then who would those teachers be? An individual teacher, or would a teacher support their own kids, or would it be a general staff? Just how does that work?
Yeah, great question, Director Hockert. I am going to turn the time over to Dr. Cherry.
Thank you, Superintendent Lansfeld. Members of the board, Director Hockert, excellent question. We will maintain our online delivery model through the entire term. So all of our courses are set up in Schoology. The students would continue to maintain their existing teachers and would continue to be provided their entire instruction with the rest of their peers in their courses. So they would follow along in Schoology and continue to maintain their schedule. The thing that would be different, or that extra layer of support of being on person, is to be working closely with a support network of individuals in the school site. So for example, the student would be in a classroom working with a para and other educators on their specific individualized learning needs. We would be able to provide that extra layer of support that students would need in order to continue to make progress in their courses.
Okay, thank you. Director Weisberg.
Thank you. Could you explain one more time, Melinda, why we are going to do away with C days for elementary teachers in March, but not secondary teachers?
Yes, of course. So the elementary teachers are assigned to a classroom. So they either teach an on-the-dial classroom, which they move with the students, whether they are in person, hybrid, or distance learning. So they are with them the entire time. The secondary teachers, a large majority of them, high percentage of them, they will be teaching a distance learning component, as well as an on-the-dial or in-person hybrid component at the same time. When that happens, the state is requiring school districts to provide an equivalent of an extra 30 minutes of prep per day, which is accounted for and allowed for by doing a C day. The one exception that we do have at the elementary level will be the specialists. They do have an online or distance learning and an on the dial. So within their schedule, they are provided 40 minutes a day on top of a 30-minute prep time to account for that online or distance learning component.
So are there not going to be families that are still going to choose distance for their elementary students?
Oh yes, we still have them, and the distance learning teachers that are with them are still with them. And that's all they're teaching is distance learning.
Okay, thank you.
Director Sherman.
I just wanted, just for the community's sake, and I know that I had asked this question earlier, but the identification of students, can you explain a little bit more, Superintendent, just how we had talked about the different reasons why someone might be identified, that it's not necessarily only academics, that there's a social emotional component to that as well?
Counselors, teachers, administrators have identified these students as academic, social, and emotional. And just because a student might have an IEP does not necessarily mean that they will be identified, because they might be making adequate progress. Some students that have speech only, for instance, might not be identified for extra support. So it's all on an individual basis, and these students have already been receiving like replacement courses. They already have gone through a lot of other interventions before they get to that point. And I don't know if Dr. Cherry wants to add anything else to that.
I will just add that the students who are being identified would be going through our support system. So we use multi-tiered systems of support to provide those additional supports for students who are identified due to, like you said, academic, social, emotional needs, students specifically who aren't making progress in their courses on pace with their peers. At our high school, we have our BAR program that does a lot of this work that happens. And so by being able to provide some in-person support for our students, we think that we'll be able to provide a better network of supports so that they can continue to progress.
Okay, Director Hockert.
Thanks. I believe in the presentation at Superintendent Lansfeld, you mentioned that the staff is going to all be going back in February. Is that the whole staff, like all middle school teachers, all high school teachers? And then are they going to be delivering their content from their classrooms? And for me, my initial consideration with this is, aren't the adults the issue in spreading the disease? And what kind of precautions are going to be put in place? Why was this necessary? And kind of why are people given the opportunity to still work from home if they're particularly worried about going back to school and delivering online instruction from school?
Okay, so all of the distance learning teachers that are currently full distance learning, they have the opportunity to work or house out of Oak Park, or they're at home. On the dial, teachers were asking, and on the dial staff, to be in the buildings beginning February 16th to support all of our students. We feel that this is one of the reasons we're doing a slow rollout. There should be plenty of space to adequately have the physical distancing, and we need all hands on deck. We want to make sure we have the operational capacity as well to support our students. For instance, I was at an elementary school. We were short, even though we had used everybody, we were short 3 subs, so we could take some staff that were interventionists and put them in as teachers instead of having to shut a school down. We need to all work together to problem solve, and that's part of our strategy to try and keep schools open. We also know that a lot of students really, those are our high priority students. We want to make sure that they are receiving the support that they need with the staff there.
Director Perbani.
Thank you, Chair Petrie. Superintendent Lansfield, thank you very much for the presentation. I know you guys put in a lot of work. It's not easy to, especially in this unprecedented times, you know, we're all learning, and I'm sure you guys are doing the same thing. All districts don't have to be the same. So we all learn as we go along. So thanks to all of you for all the effort that you've put into this. Nobody is perfect, but we know that we're doing the right things. You guys are doing the right things for our students, for our staff, but also for the parents and our community at large. So thanks to all of you. My question here is for teachers that will be doing the distance learning. Is it possible for them to have the flexibility of teleworking, of doing that from their homes, specifically to continue to prevent the possibility of infection or possibility of contacts? Because most of them haven't gotten the vaccines yet. So having that flexibility for them to continue to work from home might be one way that you can also prevent that close contact or having too many people in one space. Is that something that you are, because I know some of them might be teaching on the dial while also doing the distant learning. So what exactly are your thought process here in encouraging those teachers to actually do the work from their homes instead of being in a building space where there are other people as well?
Yeah, all of the full-time distance learning teachers will be or have the opportunity to work from their classroom at home or at Oak Park. The vast majority of teachers and staff that needed accommodations because of possibly secondary health concerns have been accommodated. And that's why they most likely are on distance. And so it didn't happen 100%, because we want to make sure that we had work for distance, but we tried to accommodate that need. So they should already have that option. For on the dial teachers, the C day will still be an option at the secondary and at the elementary. We will not have students in the building on C days. So they do have that opportunity to be home and work from a distance on that day. But we just truly thought that we do need the staff back in the building, and it's just a good thing to support our students, because I'll put operational capacity up there right now. We need people to help fill in and cover. Just as a reminder, we had assistant principal from the high school, Matt Kraft, teaching kindergarten and media. And this is, then everybody gets behind. We need to work together as a group to make sure we can do this. Because again, we don't want to go back and forth between the learning models. We know that transition is very difficult for our students. It's also not easy for our staff to do. And we do want the vaccine here. It has arrived, and we are hoping that can speed up.
Okay. I had a question since nobody else is raising their hand right now. So you're going to be bringing the teachers back into the buildings in February. I was wondering if you gave any thought to bringing GATE back at that same time, as long as you're going to have the teachers in the buildings. I know that the elementary schools the elementary students otherwise will have been back a little while at that point. I was just wondering if you had thought about that.
We had thought, yes, we have thought about that. The GATE students, we do have teachers that are also teaching other things, and then they would have to rearrange schedules for lots and lots of kids, and it would be a tough delivery model. Just not a lot of consistency like we could provide with the schedule that we're proposing.
Okay. Director Sherman.
Can you speak a little bit about where our English language learners would fall into this? Would they be identified for additional support? Would they be brought in person? Is there, I guess, anything that you could share related to that?
Yes, a lot of the students, students have been identified, and I believe they have been trying to get them in as part of the site-based program, at least maybe once a week right now. Dr. Cherry, is that right?
Yes, and then we will be including our English language learners in the group of students to be identified coming back on February 16th. And again, that is an option. We are inviting these students, not a requirement.
Mara.
Yeah, I was actually wondering mostly for high school students, when you say we'd be returning for a full day, is that the regular 7:40 to 2:10 we had in previous years, or is it like the 7:40 to 12:20 we had in the fall?
Correct, with the office hours in the afternoon. Just the same as the hybrid model.
Superintendent Lansfeld, can you talk a little bit about what that's going to look like in the high school? I know that, I wonder if classes are going to be a little smaller because there are students who have chosen online only, from the very beginning of the school year. Are classes going to be a little bit more sparse? What's it going to look like in the cafeteria? Are you still trying to work those details out? What is it actually going to look like? Because all students will be coming back now. This is not a hybrid model. What's it going to be like in a typical classroom in the high school?
Yeah, and Dr. Cherry, I'll let you take that.
I'll take that one. Chair Petrie, the families will have another opportunity to identify the learning model for their students before we come back fourth quarter. The students have at the elementary, what we've seen is not a whole lot of transition in learning model choices by families. And we will provide our secondary families that same option. but we'll have to see as we get there. We have had about, correct me if I'm wrong, Melinda, 25% or so of our students in distance learning, 100% online. And so if you think about that in a normal classroom of 35 students, with 25% of them missing, it does look like there are fewer students in a class, but that's, we still have to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah, it's ranged from 25 to 27% in distance learning. Some of the classes at the high school, if you get some choir classes, other subject areas, the classes are larger. We're trying to problem solve with that, because with singing and some of the instruments, the Minnesota Safe Schools plan, it's 12 feet of distancing before you can do that. I wish nicer weather was here so we could do some of this outside and really spread out. But they are being very creative with that. It's a great group of instructors trying to come up with some different ways to provide high quality instruction and still have that physical distancing that they're highly recommending.
And the
I just wanted
cafeteria.
to answer the second part of your question about the cafeteria. We do plan at the high school to maintain the same calendar or schedule, daily schedule, as we did in first and second quarter or first semester, where our students would have the blocks in the morning of their courses. And then we have lunch, and students can be released early during those office hour time and do the office hours from home. So students who have their own transportation, may be leaving early, may not be in the cafeteria. And so that also reduces the number of individuals that are packed into that one space.
And we're trying to think of some creative ways to still provide lunch for students that want it but don't want to be in the cafeteria. I've been at the high school where they have the sacks, just grab and go. And a lot of students like that option. So that will help with our physical distancing as well.
Okay. Director Hockert.
Kind of following up on the mention earlier of vaccines, that we have access to, I think, 17 for our district. As the district gets hopefully more than that, what is the plan for doling that out? Is it up to the district to distribute to teachers, or do teachers have to go out on their own and in the community to get those vaccines? How does that work?
Right now it's a pilot program. A staff member is identified through our prioritization, and an email goes out to them. We are also calling them because these are very precious. We want to make sure that they're used. They go online and they fill out their information, and it goes into the system. If they fill it out and they decline the vaccine, we are notified. We do not receive the person's name, but we are notified that a vaccine opened up and we can reassign. So it's very important that people let us know if they're not going to take it, because we want to make sure we have as many vaccines as possible. It goes into a system, and then the state will contact them to set up an appointment for the vaccine. They have told us that there will be evening and weekend appointments available. We have the 2 sites in the metro area at this time, and it's within so much driving time for everybody that they've looked at. And 21 days later, they can make an appointment for their second vaccine.
Director Weisberg.
Thank you. I know I'm in the minority here, and I have been for quite some time. I'm just extremely worried. I've attended every COVID meeting that I've been able to attend, including the sorcery solution meetings. And this is even more information than we talked about at our last meeting. So this is very new. I know we're not voting on this tonight, but I just don't quite understand how we can expect elementary teachers to not have a C day and other teachers have a C. I don't know how that's fair, and how, if that's something that the union has to get into. That just seems odd to me. This is the first time I've heard any of that. That bothers me. It bothers me that our specialists are going to have over 100, 200 students that they're going to be around. It bothers me that people are going to be on buses close together. I know that people keep saying the spread hasn't started in elementary schools, but we're now looking at record numbers of deaths every single day. And we're doing this at a time right when we have the opportunity to have whoever wants to get vaccinated, it's going to expand. I don't know why we want to jump the gun at this point and get people in buildings before people who want to be vaccinated have a chance to do that. I'm not going to belabor the point because I know we're not voting about it tonight, but this has me very worried. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Director Parvani.
Thank you, Chair Petrie. Director Weisberg, you're not alone. I think I'm also very concerned about the safety of all of our students, including our teachers. But we also understand that there's a necessity in terms of our students going back to the classroom. And I guess that's the reason why we have the options that we do have for most of our students to be there, and those who opt to have the distant learning, do the distance learning. So I'm with you, Director Weisberg, but I still believe that for most of our students that are in class, there is a need for that. There is a need for them to be there, and those that don't want to be on the dial can opt for the distant learning option. So those two options are there for us as parents and members of the community to choose from. Superintendent Lansfield, I wanted to ask the question, and I know that we have just 17 staff right now. We have over 500 staff in the district, but there's only 17 that have been chosen chosen for the first phase of the vaccine. Do our staff have the opportunity to also, if they don't want to use a state vaccine clinic, to use whatever other options they have, other alternatives? So they're free to use they have access to other opportunities to do that. Is that something that is communicated to the staff? And the question is, why just 17? I just wanted to just to provide some clarification as to, I know we talked about, 60 and above and all that, but with over 500 staff, I was just wondering why 17?
If I misanswer anything, let me know. And so the state said that the vaccines are coming in boxes with 975 vaccines per box, and they get distributed. And then they take all of the public and private charter schools in our state, and they divide them up based on the number of staff you have. For example, Stillwater has 17 vaccines allocated. Anoka Hennepin, which is, I think, one of the largest districts in the state, they received 80. Rosemont, Apple Valley, Egan, I believe they received 57. St. Croix Prep might have received 4 or 12 or something like that. So it's all based on how many staff you have. We actually have well over 1,000 staff in our district. And so to receive 17, it just, but it's a start. We do have some staff members that have tried to go outside of this system to sign up for a vaccine. They have had very not good. The systems are crashing. They're not able to sign up. I'm hoping that it gets better for people, but anyone can always go out and try to sign up. Right now it's the 65 and older that's really the priority. And then the educators are coming next, education staff. And this just isn't for teaching staff, it's for all staff in our district that are working with students. And so it's a pretty big number that we need to have vaccinated.
Director Sherman.
Thank you again for this presentation. It's a hard balancing act. I mean, I can't imagine. It's hard for the board. It's hard for staff. We're juggling the best interests of a lot of different stakeholders. I know there will be people upset on both sides. You're never going to make everyone happy. We have heard from people, from community members who really want their child back in school. And I think we hear a lot from those community members, because the people that are in distance are very happy. They've self-selected distance, and so they're highly satisfied. I want to balance the safety and well-being of staff and students, but this was one question, and Superintendent, I think you did a nice job answering this for me when I had reached out to you after looking at the presentation. And I just know that there are probably community members who are looking at the presentation and saying, if we can start 3 grades at a time in a building, why didn't we look at pulling 6th and 7th or 6th, 7th, and 8th at the same time? And I guess I want to ask those questions here and now, because I know there are people in the community who will be thinking that. And so I just want to be as transparent as we can about those decisions and why they were made.
Yeah, we want to do that slow rollout. We have prioritized students, and we will have a significant number of students in the building begin at the secondary level beginning February 16th. And while that's going on, we're going to have a lot of elementary students back in schools. By that time, everybody will be back, and we really want to make sure that it's safe. Again, at the secondary level, it's much more difficult to keep students contained. They're going back and forth between classes, and we want to make sure that we do this right. I did talk to the secondary principals again today. We've been having many, many conversations and working with everyone. That is the best recommendation, because again, if we bring too many back, we could just shut it right back down again. And then we're back to, here we go. You know, it's going to be a significant amount of time before we can shift back. Also at this time, the numbers, this is a projected and proposed plan. The county rate data is still an important factor when you're looking at secondary. Right now it's above 50. So if it was still above 50 and we hit that one of the dates for return at secondary, we're really going to have to scalpel the data, as they say, and make that decision. Do we really send them back on that day? Because that's a significant number.
Director Riley.
I think we have in our research that we found that it was more of an impact when we were at 80 than at 50. So I really don't want to delay sending kids back to school. As far as I'm concerned, I think it would be appropriate to tie 5th grade into the K2 rollout. I know the issue is having them in the same ends of the building. And if they're in different ends of the building, you're allowed to have more grades than those at one time. So like I said, I want to make sure that we're not slowing this any slower than it is, because it already feels very, very, very slow. I understand, around the spring break and the complications all of this gets with moving kids back and forth and all, and I understand that the complexity of the high school with all of the different grade levels, taking multiple teachers in mixed classes, but I would really love to see things sooner rather than later.
I had a question about just the, I know that you mentioned earlier that the teachers have quite a tremendous workload. And I'm wondering if what you think is going to happen in the elementary schools when those students come back. Is that going to ease anything? Did you consider shortening the school day for elementary, just like you did with the high school? Was that under consideration at all?
We took a lot into consideration. The C days was what was decided on, and then that keeps everybody's schedules consistent, so we're not all over the place. And then you look at transportation, and we have to run within certain tiers, and so you have to kind of shift everybody or nobody in some of those tiers, and so that gets quite complex as well.
Okay. Director Sherman.
Just regarding the identification system for children that are in need academically or socially and emotionally, is there anything that, if you feel like your child is in a bad spot, can you explain to the community what that process should be for engaging with staff, does it start with teacher? Do you go to principal? I just think it would be, I don't want to lose track of people who are in distress for another, and I know that as a staff, you want to know who those children are. So what would be the proper process for community members?
The students that have been identified have already had multiple interventions put in place. We have a system that's called MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support, where teachers gather, look at the data, and they're continually making decisions on how to support them. There are different tiers of support that graduate up. I would say when I receive an email from a family that's struggling, I want to know, have you contacted your child's teacher? And if the teacher's not doing anything, which teachers love their kids, they wouldn't be doing this. The job is hard. But if you're frustrated with that, then just move up to the child's counselor, student advocate, even the principal, but they're there to support. Some families hesitate contacting the school. They're worried. I don't want to bother people. This is why we're here. We are a team and we need to support these children together. So if you have not received any support and your child might be struggling, please contact the school and start there and work together to support your child.
Director Hockert?
Sorry, just to tag team with Director Sherman. So would families have an opportunity? Is there room for more kids to be identified to come back in that earlier phase, or do we need to keep it under a certain number? And the district has identified the group, and we're going to have to work through other systems.
Yes, we need it safe and we need it small. And if there haven't been interventions already started, there are different interventions besides bringing students back in person that can be started. But there's a process, it's a system, and you need to start here to move up here.
Director Sherman.
Last, and this is more of a comment, but I think in the last presentation with elementary, I know I have learned a lot from the staff on this call and also from staff in our buildings about the importance of that C Day. And so I just wanted to thank everyone on this call and staff who have taken the time to reach out to the board and really explain that. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay. And if we need to reevaluate the C Day at the elementary level, we can always come back to the board. We can collect data and see how it's going. But thank you for allowing the elementary to have that up until March 1st. It will be very valuable for our students to have, as well as our teachers.
Director Onken.
I just want to chime in. I've been pretty quiet here, and I don't want to sound cavalier, but I think it's great that we're making plans to try to get kids back into the buildings. Again, understand there's going to be people on each side of it. I currently work in a district where we are having these same conversations and these same difficult decisions to be made. And I think the plan that you've rolled out seems appropriate. I think it's scheduled at a time where, it does take some time for us to get kids back in. And it also leaves it fluid enough where if numbers do go up, we can pull back if we need to. So it looks good. And there's a lot of work that goes into this for sure. This is not taken lightly on by anybody for sure. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions before we move on? Okay, thank you, Superintendent Lansfeld. I just want to go back for a second. I skipped over open forum because I knew that there was no one here tonight who wanted to speak with us, but I probably should have mentioned that. All right, so the next item that we have is contract reviews. So, Dr. Tyne.
Good evening, board chair, board members, superintendent. There's a process put in place by the district that reviews contracts that administrators have authority to approve. Tonight, there are two of those contracts which come before you. One is for Larson Engineering for designing and bid specifications for a number of repair projects. Tony and Mark plus the on-site staff members of operation and maintenance review all of the sites to make sure that we're keeping the cracks and repairing the parking lots and the other projects such as sidewalk replacement. The other one is for Wold engineering and roof replacement project at Oak Park. And it'll be done during the summer of 2021. And the estimated cost for engineering services will be $31,875. And I would stand for any questions that you have concerning those two contracts. I guess I'm sitting. I should say I'm sitting, but I'm here.
Director Parbeni.
Thank you, Chair Petrie. What was the cost for the first one, John?
The
You
first
mentioned
one is,
two.
it's a contract where it cannot go over 50,000. That's the agreement. So once it gets to that part, Tony and Mark step in and say, no more spending unless we go back to the board and have approval of it.
Okay, and the second one is 31,000.
Right.
Okay, so
875.
and that's the most conservative we have with respect to all of the submissions, right? In terms of cost.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tyne.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to action items now. The first one is the amended 2020 to 2024 transportation contract with MTN Bus Company. And Lance, I think you're going to talk to us about this.
Yes. Good evening, Superintendent Lansfeld, Board Chair, members of the school board. I'm here to present an amendment to our current operating agreement with our primary school bus contractor, Metropolitan Transportation Network, MTN. This amendment would agree to reimburse MTN for previously scheduled transportation work that was not performed due to COVID during the 2020-2021 school year only, at a rate of 84% of our normal contracted daily rate. Obviously, that would be a reduced rate from what we normally pay. This would only be for daily to and from school transportation. This does not include activity type transportation. Be for regular and special ed to from home to school. We believe, as well as our legal counsel, that this best reflects the most up-to-date guidance given by MDE on how to handle this difficult decision. This will allow for our contractor to continue paying drivers their normal wages, as well as other costs that have continued during distance learning. This should help Stillwater continue to retain drivers and allow our new contractor to continue making payments on the new school bus vehicle fleet that they purchased this past summer for our school district. We have agreed on this reduced rate by removing some non-fixed expenses such as fuel and liquids that haven't been used during this time. Most districts in the metro have come to agreements with their transportation contractors at this point in the school year. We are one of the last metro districts to do so. Our delay was for a couple reasons. One, primarily we were waiting for MDE to make a final decision and give us guidance on special ed reimbursement, which didn't happen till late October. Once that decision was made, it helped us feel better about the 84% mark. If we weren't getting reimbursement for special ed, we might have had a different feeling on how to move forward with that. Once that was determined, we were able to move forward a bit. We did spend, it was a couple months of negotiations with MTN, with our legal counsel and our district leaders, as well as looking into some of their statistics and some of their, they'll need to provide evidence on obviously bus payments. If we request evidence on payroll, those types of things, they would need to provide that. In the metro for the 2020-21 school year, when looking at comparables, the average agreed rate for this COVID period for school transportation contractors is between 80% and 90%, including our neighbors, our direct neighbors. Again, we have come to this preliminary agreement at 84% with MTN and are recommending to the school board this evening that we move forward with this amended reflecting that number. At this point, I'd open it up. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Before we take questions, is there a motion to accept the amended transportation contract with MTN as recommended by administration? Director Sherman? Is there a second? Director Porveni. All right. Anyone have any questions about this? Director Porveni.
Thank you for the presentation. What are we looking at in terms of savings as compared to the previous year? If
Well,
any?
that's a good question. I'm not sure compared to the previous year. Our rates do go up every year, and we do have a new contractor this year. I don't have our previous contract in front of me, but I know our rates did go up this year, but obviously we'd be paying 84%, so it'd be a 16% reduction on what we had budgeted for this school year.
Great.
So,
That's what I
it
wanted
is
to hear.
an actual savings from our budget, yes.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else with questions? Director Hockert.
I'm assuming that this is just during the period of time when kids are in distance learning, and then we'll go back to the regular rates once school buses are up and running. And I guess I'm not sure if you could answer this or Superintendent Lansfeld. Does the bus rates, are we going to continue going back to 100% in our busing capacity once we get our kids kind of rolled back in? And then since it is a slow rollout of getting kids back into school, how does that kind of factor in with the 80% or 84% cost? As we
go ahead.
I'll take the cost question. This school year, we have a 4-hour minimum daily rate. So what we're talking about for the 84% would be calendar days where nothing ran. So most Fridays, I think the first week of school when we pushed out the start date, and then hybrid days, we still ended up paying our same rate, obviously. But moving forward, right now, we obviously would be paying the 84%. As soon as buses are rolling again, we're back to 100%. So we've been tracking that all year, obviously, and are keeping a close watch on those invoices to make sure we're paying accurately.
Okay, with the bus capacity during the hybrid model, it was at 50% capacity or less. When you're in person, it can be 100% capacity. This is why it's important to have that slow rollout. So when they are running routes, and we have just a few grade bands to start with, we can still spread the students out and have the assigned seating. But when we are full in person, there will be 2 and 3 students per seat.
It will feel like it did before, other than the first row from the driver. That's our MDE guidance to keep the first row clear. But the rest of the bus will feel like it had a normal day once we're back full.
Okay, thank you. Director Onken.
Lance, I know we talked about this, the finance and operations meeting today.
Matt, I think you might be freezing up here. I think you just froze up. Okay, does anyone else have a question while we wait for Matt to come back in? I actually had a question about the capacity on the buses. Do we have any plans for assigned seating or anything like that to try to mitigate the fact that we're going to have so many students on a bus?
Yes, we do have assigned seating, and depending on how many students are on that route, they will spread them out as much as possible. They do take attendance on the bus, so we know who has been on the bus in case there's a possible exposure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, it doesn't look like we have Matt back here yet. Yes, Dr. Cherry.
Thank you, Chair Petrie. I just wanted to add one more comment about the buses when we return. I think our community needs to hear to bundle your kids up on the bus. We are planning to crack the windows, and so it might get a little cold. And so make sure that our kiddos have their hats and mittens and are ready to just to experience a little bit more breeze than they're used to.
Okay, thank you. Well, Matt has not come back on yet, but I think we will probably just go ahead and take our vote. And hopefully he'll be on any second now. Yeah, were there any other questions? Anyone else have any other questions on this topic? Okay, all right. Joan, would you like to take the roll, please?
Director Hackert,
Yes.
Director Corbeni,
Yes.
Director Riley,
Yes.
Director Sherman,
Yes.
Director Weisberg, Chair Petrie.
Yes.
You have a 6-0 vote.
Okay.
Matt's back.
Yes.
You have a 7-0 vote. You have a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Sorry, I got froze up there. My bad.
We noticed. Did you have a question that you wanted to put forth, or are you going to let it go? Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. We're going to move on to the next item, which is long-term facility maintenance with the architect company Wold. And we'll have Mark Drummerhausen tell us about this.
Good evening, Chair Petrie, members of the board. Today, administration is seeking approval for a proposal for Wold Architects to complete our architectural and engineering services for the upcoming summer's long-term facility maintenance projects. The projects will replace facility finishes, mechanical systems, and plumbing fixtures. Wold Architects will create bidding specifications, drawings, approve submittals, issue change orders, certify payments, and monitor construction projects. We have projects at all of our schools except for Brookview and a few minor projects at our early childhood building. So just to kind of get a flavor of what some of the projects are, at the high school, we're going to replace hallway ceiling and lighting, replace chalkboards at Afton Lakeland, Lily Lake, and Stillwater Middle School, replace 2 rooftop units at Anderson Elementary, paint and replace lighting and interior lighting and carpet in the interior circulation area at Rutherford Elementary, provide ADA restrooms in the lower level classrooms at Stonebridge, replace exterior parking lot lighting at Oakland Middle School, and then replace casework and sinks and plumbing in some of our classrooms at many of our schools. This is just a sampling of some of the projects that will take place this summer. This action item is part of the long-term facility maintenance. So Director Porbini, to go back to your question of the reports on the contract with Larson Engineering and the Wold, this is part of Wold's contract. The other one was the rooftop or partial rooftop, replacement at Oak Park. The reason they split it out is they're just different bidding timelines between the roof and some of these projects. So they split it out, but this is all under the long-term facility maintenance. Same thing with the Larson Engineering project. Those fall under our long-term facility maintenance project. So the projects for our long-term facility maintenance are approved every year in the summer. So they were approved at the June 25th board meeting. And this action item is just for Wold's approval for doing their part in this. And then we talked about some of the bidding. So some of these projects are going to be bid out because of the scope and size. Some will not, but the ones that are bid out, we will come back to you with those bids and who bid on those projects, what the prices were, what the lowest responsible bidder was, and those sorts of things as we go along. So just in the timeline of projects with long-term facility maintenance, now we're starting to get into bidding season and creating specific projects and designs and drawings. So this is our approval of the Wold Architect contract for our summer's projects. So with that, I will open it up to any questions or comments that you may have.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve the architect fees for the long-term facility maintenance projects for this summer? Director Sherman, is there a second? Director Hockert. Okay, any questions on this? All right, seeing none, we'll ask, Director Porbeni.
Sorry, this might not necessarily, Mark, I'm truly sorry about the question I'm about to ask. It might not be part of your plan, but it's been a concern of mine for so many, I would say so many months or years. and again, this is definitely out of the question. So just kind of educate me here, because this is the first time I'm kind of being a part of the whole planning process in terms of how you make decisions. I'm not sure how you make decisions in terms of selections. But I will say this, and I will say this as a parent who has been in that building and how disturbed and concerned I was, and to see if it was something that you all actually also looked at. The bathrooms at Lake Elmo Elementary. And anybody who has been to Lake Elmo Elementary and the bathrooms there and the stench and the fact that we have kids in that building, is that something that you guys are also thinking in terms of trying to make sure that the problem there is fixed? I don't know if it's part of your plan, but as a parent walking into that space, and it's not just me, and I think a lot of us that walked into that space were very disturbed at what we saw and what we smelled. So just a parent concern. So I don't know how you make these decisions. I wanted to bring it to your attention. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. In terms of our long-term facility maintenance for this year, that is not part of our plan. Each year we come to you with a plan. There's also a 10-year plan as well as we look out moving forward. That is something that we can look at in future plans to look at address. There are some restrooms remodel that we're doing at some of our buildings. Just this year, Lake Elmo isn't one of them, but that is something we can look at in the future.
Okay, any other questions? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the architect's fees for the long-term facility maintenance projects for this summer. Joan, can you please take the roll?
Director Hackert,
Yes.
Director Anken,
Yes.
Director Porbeni,
Yes.
Director Riley,
Yes.
Director Sherman,
Yes.
Director Weisberg,
Yes.
Chair Petrie.
Yes.
You have a 7-0 vote.
Great, thank you, Joan. Next item on our list is the 10th grade ELA expenditures. Rachel Larson.
Thank you. Good evening, Board Chair Petrie, Vice Chair Sherman, Superintendent Lansfeld. I'm excited to be here tonight to be seeking your approval to spend money for 10th grade ELA curriculum and textbooks. As you may be aware, last year we started the approval of our secondary ELA curriculum review process. And so we are technically still in the first year of that. And so mid-year here, we have the opportunity to purchase the 10th grade curriculum. So before you tonight is an invoice for $61,479.24. This expense has already been budgeted and has been earmarked in the approval that the board made last year on January 23rd, 2020. So it will come out of fiscal year 21 funds, but it's already been earmarked and it brings no additional cost to the board whatsoever as it is deducted from the Learning and Innovation Curriculum Department budget. This was brought forward to the Finance Committee, and we are asking for your approval tonight to purchase the secondary ELA curriculum for 10th grade.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion on the floor to approve this expenditure for the 10th grade ELA program? Director Porbeni, is there a second? Director Hackert, great. Are there any questions on this? Okay, seeing none. We have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the 10th grade ELA expenditures. Joan, can you please take the roll?
Director Hackert? Yes. Director Anken?
Yes.
Director Porbeni?
Yes.
Director Riley?
Yes.
Director Sherman?
Yes.
Director Weisberg?
Yes.
Chair Petrie?
Yes.
You have a 7-0 vote.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
Next on the item is the school calendar. We'll hear from Dr. Cherry.
Thank you, Chair Petrie, Superintendent Lansfeld, all of the directors on the board. Here seeking your approval on a calendar for the 21-22 academic school year. In looking at developing our school calendar, I came to you at our last board meeting and provided an overview of our calendar development. We do have a committee that comes together that includes parents, teachers, principals, and a variety of district administrators. This team worked very hard in developing calendar options for the board to consider that met all of our district requirements. We analyzed a lot of information and were able to draft 2 options for the school board to consider. As we were developing these calendars, we did come to consensus on one of the options unanimously. In looking at all of the inputs and the information that we had to consider, the priorities we were pretty constrained in how we develop our school calendar. We need to make sure that we are fitting in 172 student contact days, and under all of our employee contract requirements, we consider we are accounting for 192 teacher contact days. With that, we also look at the holidays. We have 5 holidays that we are considering during the academic year. And we also pay attention to Election Day coming up in the 21-22 school year. That is in the first week of November, where we do not want to have students in our building because some of our schools are election sites. In also considering all of the information on these dates that are set forward on the calendar, we consider academic, athletic, assessment, and various activity needs. Our assessment calendar is set for us each year. We do have specific windows and time throughout the academic year where certain assessments need to take place. This is a strong consideration as we look at high stakes testing or the standardized testing that we use to understand the academic progress of our students and also where our district is in meeting those learning needs. We strive to balance our quarters and our semesters. We do pay attention to graduation, which is typically the first weekend in June. We also look at our neighboring district calendars to see where is their alignment. We do appreciate when our staff and our families have connections in our neighboring districts, and we can be as uniform as possible in our calendars, or those calendars line up on specific holidays and breaks. We also considered our high school league, our Minnesota State High School League schedules and secondary registration. As you look at page 35 and 36 in your packet, you will see the specifics. I realize that this is a little small, a little hard to read on the screen. So in your packet, pay attention to page 35 for our first option. This is the draft calendar that had unanimous approval and support from our calendar committee. This is a before Labor Day start. So you'll notice that new teachers would start on August 17th. The rest of the teachers would come back on August 23rd. And then our students would have their first day of school on August 30th. This is helpful in looking at getting in those additional instructional days before the window of our standardized testing. We also have appreciated this calendar in the past. We have found that students are more calm when they get in before that Labor Day weekend can get adjusted to school, and a lot of those nerves are settled, and students then come back to us in September after that long weekend and are ready to really get their academic hats on and hit the ground running. And so that has worked well in the district in the last couple of years and had strong support from from the committee. Both of these calendars, you'll notice, have a balanced semesters and quarters. You'll notice on both option 1 and 2, semester 1 includes 88 school days and semester 2 is 84 school days. And that was very purposeful in thinking about front loading our semesters or instructional days into the first semester, because it is very helpful for the orientation and introduction to the new school year. In looking at the school calendar, the other things to note in these two options is with option number 1, with the start date of August 30th, the last day of school is June 2nd. And our graduation is typically that first Saturday in June. And so that lines up very nicely on this calendar. On both of these options, you'll notice that winter break and spring break are scheduled at the same time. Community members, parents, students have a lot of questions about how we decide when those breaks are, and it really just depends on how these dates fall on the calendar on each given year. Looking at spring break, we strive to have spring break so that it isn't at an odd time within the quarter or the semester. And so with option number 1, you'll notice that spring break is a few weeks before the end of the term. And so, like I said, this is the option that the committee did come to unanimous support for. On the next slide, I'm going to just provide again a reminder on some of those highlights. The August 30th first day of school, this provides those additional instructional days before the standardized testing. The August start date also aligns with our neighbors. District 622 and District 833 both have August start dates. And so that would be similar to our neighbors. And then the last day of school being that first week in June lines up really nice with our June 4th graduation. And again, semester 1, semester 2 finally balanced, but there are a few extra days in semester 1 for those orientation days. At the last board meeting, when the report was presented, there was an excellent question about how do we do this as a school district with a pre-Labor Day start? And I wanted to point out the statute and where this comes from. This is statute 120A.40 on our school calendar. And this does indicate that except for learning programs during flexible or summer or flexible learning programs, which are authorized, that school districts should be starting, they should not commence or start before Labor Day. And then there's some exceptions to the rule. And a district may begin the school year on any day before Labor Day to accommodate a construction or a remodeling project of $400,000 or more affecting a district school facility. This is the information that has been used in previous years to justify a pre-Labor Day start. When checking or digging just a little bit further into what does this mean, because the committee by no means was saying we have to do this to accommodate a construction project. It was more about the instructional needs and the academic and social emotional needs of our students and meeting those needs. It wasn't to accommodate a construction project. So I did a little bit more digging, contacted some individuals at the Department of Education to learn more about what does it mean to have a flexible learning year program and how do you get that authorized under this statute. So if you go to the next slide, you can see a little bit more information about that. There is a flexible learning year application that school districts may choose to apply to be approved for this. And the statute is listed here on the slide. And a district is authorized to evaluate, plan, and employ the use of a flexible learning year programs. It's anticipated that the open selection of the type of the learning flexible learning year operation from a variety of alternatives will allow each district seeking to utilize this concept to suitably fulfill the educational needs of its pupils. And so there's some guidance that's offered in this application process. And right within the application, and this was verified by our contacts at the Department of Education, is that school districts such as ours would not actually fill out this application for a waiver. And it's districts that have $400,000 or more of current construction. They simply just notify the school finance division at the Minnesota Department of Education that they are claiming a school calendar waiver. And so we could fill out this flexible learning year application if we chose to, but it's not necessary. And that was the counsel from the Department of Education, because we did meet that requirement. Knowing all of this, we also, now I'm actually coming to understand that in previous years, the board had requested to not have another pre-Labor Day start. And so we do have another option to offer to the board if you so choose. And this option number 2 does provide for an after Labor Day start. Again, we do meet all of the requirements under the number of student contact days, the teacher contract days, all of the holidays are accounted for. And you'll notice again that these calendars are very similar as to when the breaks line up. The main difference is the before Labor Day and the after Labor Day start. One of the things about this calendar is that the school year would go through June 8th. And so our typical graduation of the first weekend in June would just need to be shifted down, and we'd have to work out those details. But this is an offer of a second option if the board would like to consider this as well. It does meet all of our requirements. And with that, and for your consideration, I'm open to any questions that you may have, and just reinforce again, the calendar committee and administration on behalf of the calendar committee is recommending option number 1.
Thank you, Dr. Cherry. Before we begin discussion, is there a motion from the floor for one of these options for a school calendar for the coming year? Director Sherman.
I would like to make a motion to approve option 1 as presented for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second? Director Probani. Okay. Questions, discussion? Director Onken.
So, Dr. Cherry, I'm still a little confused as to how we get to do option 1. You know, reading the statutes and stuff, it doesn't quite. Here's the thing. I wish the state would just decide to let schools start before Labor Day. I think starting after Labor Day is silly. That's just a personal opinion of mine. But when I read the statute, I just don't quite understand how we fit into that. I know Minneapolis does it every year, but they probably have enough projects going on that they can easily do that. So anyway, if you just shed a little more light on that for me, it just doesn't make any sense. Even though I like calendar 1, that's what I would vote for, but it just doesn't quite seem like we're fitting where we need to fit.
I think, great question, Director Onken. Thank you for that. I think we're landing, and I think other school districts are in the same spot, is we are finding a lot of value in meeting the academic and social emotional needs of our students with that pre-Labor Day start. And so there are more school districts who are tending to opt for that. Like I said, both of our neighboring districts here, 622 and 833, are also opting for that additional option. And there are there's a lot of leeway for school districts to justify that through their flexible learning year plans. And the waiver process, as I described, is something that expands that out to additional school districts. But you'll notice that if you look at the school districts that actually have completed that waiver for any of those flexible learning years, you'll notice none of the big districts are on there, because almost all big districts have long-term facilities maintenance, and that construction is happening over the summer.
Okay. Yeah, that's appreciated. Do you know, this is a little off topic, but I mean, is anybody lobbying at the legislature to get rid of this so that schools can have a little more flexibility when their start is?
I can't say for the lobbying. I am familiar with the lobbying that happens on behalf of our resorts in our state.
Mm-hmm.
We have a really, I think, robust resort system and vacation schedules that families like to keep over that very precious holiday.
Yeah.
So I have not heard of any lobbying on the other side of that argument.
Director Riley. Director Riley, I think you're on mute still. Not yet. I'm going to come back to you in just a second. Director Sherman.
I just want to make a comment that calendars, thank you to the calendar committee, because these are extremely difficult committees to be a part of. And thank you, Dr. Cherry, for going kind of above and beyond and really making sure with this MDE and with the statute that we're good to go here. I appreciate that. I'm sure that took extra time and you're really busy, but it makes me feel good that we're able to both look at a pre-Labor Day start and meet kind of where the teachers think our students are best served. And then also I do want to point out, I love that you were able to balance and give students and families at a little longer Labor Day break still with that Friday off before. So I just think it's some really good work, and I appreciate you just going to MDE and going and making that extra effort to make sure we're good.
Thank you, Director Sherman.
Director Riley.
Is it working now? Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. I'm struggling a little bit with this. I know we had this big conversation last year at this time with Bob McDowell, and when we were coming through this and having this conversation, we discussed specifically to stay away from the pre-Labor Day start. I think it's disingenuous, the approach that's being taken right now with the school flexibility or the flexible learning that per se is happening. That's not what the intention of this is. The intention of that holiday, we have very, very short summers and warm weather, and parents really like to bring family together, and family is actually the most important, staple for our children. And that one last weekend inhibits families from having that time together and supporting our economy and people having their cabins and things away. They can't do it. We don't have any construction projects that would justify the delay, and that was the intent of this. It isn't to subvert what the initial intent of this statute is. I'm in disagreement of this. I really don't think it's a good idea. I know I've heard from some that I have worked at MDE that said we're being watched right now because of the amount of time we're utilizing or the amount of frequency we're using this as an excuse to start school early. So I'm in disagreement. I don't think it's genuine. I don't think the reasoning is genuine. And I really think we need to follow the laws.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments on this? No? Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we accept option number 1 for a school calendar for the coming year. Joan, can you take the roll call on this, please?
Director Hackert,
Yes.
Director Ankin,
Yes.
Director Poor-Benny,
Yes.
Director Riley,
No.
Director Sherman,
Yes.
Director Weisberg,
No.
Chair Petrie.
Yes.
You have a 5-2 vote. Motion passes.
Thank you, Joan. Next item on our agenda are the school board committee assignments and working groups for this year. I had asked board members to give me preferences at the last meeting, and I made these assignments for the school board representatives to the various organizations, also the school board subcommittees. And we also have liaisons to the various schools, buildings in the district. So this list is contained in the packet for anyone to see, and I'm sure that it will be on the website shortly. Is there a motion on the floor to accept these assignments for 2021? Director Onken, is there a second? Director Sherman. Any discussion? Director Poor-Benny? No? Okay, no. Changed her mind. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the member assignments for 2021. Joan, can you please take the roll?
Director Hackert,
Yes.
Director Ankin,
Yes.
Director Poor-Benny,
Yes.
Director Riley,
Yes.
Director Sherman,
Yes.
Director Weisberg, Chair Petrie.
Yes.
You have a 7-0 vote.
Thank you, Joan. Okay, we move on to board member reports. First one is board chair report. I have nothing for tonight. The working group reports, we haven't actually met yet. So unless someone has something to bring up, I don't believe we would. Okay, Director Onken.
Do you want to talk about the chiller for the Finance and Operations Committee? It's not a big deal, but
Okay, go ahead.
it was brought up. We had a Finance and Operations Committee meeting today, right before this meeting, and one thing that was brought up is one of the chillers at the high school, I think it was. I'm assuming this has got to be an air conditioning unit, is what I'm going with. That's the extent of my HVAC knowledge. It is in need of refurbishment. They're not replacing it, but they are looking to refurbish it, to overhaul it, so to speak. So we probably will see a request coming from the long-term maintenance facilities funding to take care of that within the next year. So that's all I got to report.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, board member reports. Anyone have anything? Director Weisberg.
Thank you. I apologize. I was going to do this at the beginning of our meeting, but for some reason, every time I scrolled past, I could not find it. I just would like to acknowledge some retirements that we have tonight that are pretty substantial. Deborah Gray is retiring after 20 years from Stillwater High School. Robert McGinnis is retiring as a custodian from Stonebridge, also after 20 years. Michelle Pentland is retiring after 28 years from Lily Lake. Susan Traxler, also from Lily Lake, is retiring after 34 years. And I just wanted to say congratulations to all those people and thank you for your service in this district. Years ago, I had a good friend who retired, actually 4 years ago. I had a good friend who retired, and her letter from the district actually said, "Dear retired employee." And so I hope that that's not happening anymore. But I just wanted to say congratulations to all these wonderful people and thank you for serving our district. That's it.
Well said, Director Weisberg, and thank you for saying that. Anyone else have anything that they would like to say? No? Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.